Okay guys, so in this training video, I'm going to be talking about fat loss. I'm in a fat loss phase at the moment, so I can speak from personal experience heavily here. A lot of you on the program are going through fat loss phases right now, and for those of you that aren't, it might be something that you do in the future. Now, I'm going to put this in the nutrition section, but just purely because a lot of the tips here are surrounding nutrition, but obviously fat loss is determined by not only nutrition, but also your training in and out of the gym, whether you're taking a hybrid style with strength training and running, but also your expenditure as well. So step count and also mindset to an extent has a massive effect on fat loss. And what I mean by that is fat loss is not forever. A fat loss phase is not forever. It's not good to do year round. You will stay in a fat loss phase as long as you kind of want and need to, depending on your goal and depending on what we think is appropriate for you. But I think just knowing that a calorie deficit isn't forever is really important because it's going to give you motivation to see the process through. So for example, for me, I almost finished a 9-week prep for a photo shoot. So I obviously knew that it was a 9-week phase. I'm therefore very motivated for those 9 weeks. If it had been longer than that, I probably would have started flagging. I probably would have started losing motivation. So it's just important to know how long you're doing this for to an extent. Like sometimes we can't give an exact time frame. It just depends on the client, obviously how things are going with their training, nutrition, and other things that are going on in their lives. But a deficit is not forever. A fat loss phase is not forever. And it's something that you might cycle through each year, combining phases of maintenance, reverse diets, and lean gaining phases as well. So hydration. Dehydration can often be confused for hunger. So making sure that you are fully hydrated as soon as you wake up is really, really important. Obviously, for most of you on the program, we are recommending that you're weighing yourself first thing in the morning after you've been to the toilet and before eating or drinking anything. But as soon as you've weighed yourself, then make sure that you're hydrated. I would recommend, what I do is I'll have 500 milliliters of water straight away. I'll just down it, and that means that I am pretty much fully hydrated within the first 15 minutes of the day. Because, as I say, if you've slept for 7 to 8 hours each night, by definition, you're pretty much waking up dehydrated because every time you breathe, you are expending water particles. So make sure that you are consuming water within the first 15 minutes of waking. I'd recommend 500 milliliters as soon as possible. For some of you that aren't as kind of like you haven't built up that tolerance to drinking a high amount of water yet, certainly 300 mils within the first half an hour of waking. Something that I just kind of go by as soon as I go into a fat loss phase is just trying to cut out liquid calories wherever possible. And I've put wherever possible because obviously if you are, you can go into a fat loss phase and you can still make room for a few drinks on the weekend, and those drinks are obviously going to have calories in. But just try and cut them out wherever possible. It's just a good rule of thumb to live by because when you're in a fat loss phase and you're in a calorie deficit, you need to be allocating pretty much all the calories that you're consuming towards satiation, energy, and filling you up. And if you're consuming calories from liquids, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck in terms of energy and training performance if you were to consume those calories through whole foods. So for example, if you're getting 30 to 40 grams of carbs through a pint of orange juice versus a bowl of oats, obviously the oats are going to be more of a slow release carbohydrate that's going to give you better energy in the gym and are going to satiate you, which is really, really important in a fat loss phase. So pushing back your first meal, I've put / meal timing because it's not the same for everyone, and it largely does depend on your preference, what time of day you like to eat and what time of day you like to train as well. But this is something that I used to do when I was at university. I used to kind of do low key intermittent fasting. I basically just wouldn't eat breakfast, and all that you're essentially doing by pushing your first meal back is you're shortening your eating window. So if you're waking up at 6 a.m. and you're going to bed at, let's say 9:30, 10 p.m., spreading 2,200 calories over that amount of time could potentially be quite hard, and it could leave you hungry at the end of the day. Whereas if you were to push your first meal back to say, 8, 9, maybe even 10 a.m., you're shortening your eating window, and then the likelihood of you being more full when you go into bed in the evening is higher. And that again is obviously going to get rid of those feelings of hunger, which you don't want really. For those of you that do enjoy eating breakfast and early in the morning, maybe just consider cutting off your last meal a little bit earlier, but it does depend on what time of day you want to train. If you train first thing in the morning, then I personally think it's quite important to get a big satiating meal in in the evening so that you can go into the gym fasted and still have good energy and good training performance. This is something that we work quite closely with you guys with. So if you're unsure of kind of where to place your meals, what time of day to train, just make sure to reach out to us and we'll give you some guidance on that. But that's just the trick that I try to use. It's not always possible because for me, for example, 3 days a week I'm running first thing in the morning, so I want to be consuming carbs and protein within an hour after doing that. And if I'm running at 6, half 6, by definition I'm eating by half 7, 8. So but on a rest day when I'm not training early in the morning, I might try and push my first meal back till 10, sometimes even half 10. And then I find that even if I'm not consuming as many calories that day, but I've started eating later, I'm very full in the evening, which is obviously the situation that you want to be in. Increasing veg intake is a really simple one. By having more fiber in your diet, you're gonna feel more full, and just also psychologically, like bulking out your meals with a lot of veg is gonna make it feel like it's a bigger meal, because it is, I guess. Things that I like to do and vegetables that I like to use to bulk up my meals, I'll always go with like broccoli. It's pretty filling for the amount of calories in it. Courgette is a really good one as well. And then lettuce, sometimes if I'm having like a Mexican dish, it literally doubles the size of the meal, and you end up feeling pretty full at the end. If you were to take all those vegetables away, I honestly think like the size of the plate of food that you'd be eating would be about half the size. Like, obviously it does depend on how much veg you're eating. Spinach is also a good one as well, but that's just something I like to do, and obviously it's just going to increase the likelihood of you getting a high amount of vegetables in your diet, which is obviously good from a health standpoint as well. High protein, multiple reasons why you should have a high protein diet that are related to fat loss too. So satiation, high protein is going to make you feel fuller for longer. Thermogenesis, so you expend more energy digesting protein than you do carbs and fats. So in theory, if you were to have a case study where you had two people and they've got exactly the same expenditure, same training, same lifestyle, one of them was eating, 100 grams of protein a day. One of them was eating 150 grams of protein a day. That individual eating more protein would expend more energy through digestion, and therefore they should get leaner. So that is another reason why you want to maintain a high amount of protein in your diet when you're going through a fat loss phase. And the last one, muscle maintenance. Obviously, it is harder to build and maintain muscle when you are in a calorie deficit than when you're at maintenance or even in a calorie surplus. It definitely is possible. So many case studies of clients that we've worked with where they've built muscle in a deficit, but it's usually because they're coming from a background of not training much. But yeah, maintain a high protein when you're in a deficit to help you maintain your muscle mass and even build it in some cases. So protein is absolutely key, regardless of whether you're in a fat loss phase, maintenance, or surplus. Maintain or increase your step count. I will continue to bang on about this forever because it is so effective. Like, I'm doing this 9-week photo shoot prep. We've only changed my calories once, and that was in week 4. All I focus on doing for the last 4 weeks, and what I'll focus on doing for the next week, is just slowly tapering up my steps. So my expenditure is slowly increasing each week. I chose to do that for opportunity cost reasons. So I would rather eat more food and increase my output by increasing my steps rather than reducing calories, just because I'm someone with a high appetite. I'm also training for performance, like most of you on the program. So you want as many calories as you can have within reason while still achieving your goals. So I will always choose to increase my step count. And it's just such an easy tweak that you can make to your routine to take things to the next level in terms of fat loss. I always talk about last year, got rid of my car for a month before I moved away. I was still PTing at the time, so I had to walk to work. My steps went from about 11,000 a day, obviously already quite high, genuinely up to like 17 or 18,000. And I lost 1.5 kilos in like a month just purely from doing that. It was consistent as well. It was actually closer to 2 kilos. So step count is so effective for fat loss. And a lot of people will turn their nose up at it because they've never actually maintained one for a long enough time to actually see results. But it is really effective, and it's low intensity in nature, which means it's not going to spike your appetite, which is obviously not what you want in a fat loss phase. So I couldn't recommend increasing your steps more if you've got the time to do so. What I like to do to kind of make that time productive is I'll use that time to respond to messages on social media, call family, friends, or whatever, reply to clients and stuff like that. So it's not just aimlessly going out and getting steps in. And it's something that I'm really going to maintain aim to maintain year round, because I've seen the effectiveness of it this time round, doing my own fat loss phase. But yeah, that's it. So I hope those tips are useful. But just remember what I said at the start: a fat loss phase and a deficit is not forever. But these are just some of the tips that I use personally and what we recommend to all of you guys anyway. Cheers.